You know, when a health crisis hits, those official messages we see and hear can literally mean the difference between calm and chaos. But if you ever stopped and wondered how they actually come up with what to say, well, it's not just guesswork. There's a whole detailed playbook behind the scenes, a system that's designed to guide all of us through the storm. So let's dive in and break down how it really works. Right from the start, you can see the stakes are incredibly high. The World Health Organization puts it perfectly. This isn't just about blasting out information. It's about empowering people, especially the ones who are most vulnerable, to truly understand what's going on and what they can do to protect themselves and their loved ones. Getting this right literally saves lives. So, how do officials actually manage all this chaos? Well, they follow a pretty clear roadmap. We're going to start with the playbook itself, and then we'll walk through the 4 key phases of a crisis: the prep work before anyone even knows there's a problem, that critical first response, the ongoing battle against misinformation, and finally, how we learn and recover. Okay, before we jump into the phases, we need to get our heads around the core idea here. It's called Risk Communication and Community Engagement, or RCCE. And the 2 most important words on this slide are reciprocal and multidirectional. What that really means is this is not a one-way megaphone where the government just shouts at you. It's designed to be a 2-way street, a real conversation that builds confidence and empowers you to make the best decisions for your family. All right, let's get into our first section, the communication playbook. This is all about the foundational system that has to be in place long before a crisis ever hits the headlines. So, what is this system, really? Well, think of it like the skeleton for the entire crisis response. It's a pre-built structure that makes sure the right people, the right tools, and the right strategies are already waiting in the wings. So when an emergency happens, effective communication isn't improvised on the spot, it's activated. And these are the core principles, kind of like the system's DNA. You can see it's meant to be collaborative. It brings in community leaders, not just government officials. It's totally integrated with everything else happening in the response. It's based on hard science, and this part's crucial, it's auditable. That means after it's all over, we can go back and see exactly what worked, what didn't, and make the whole playbook better for next time. Okay, now let's get into the timeline. It all starts with phase 1, before the crisis. This is all the quiet but absolutely critical work that happens when things are calm, long before an emergency ever makes the news. Yep, this is what they call the peacetime work. Teams are put together, partnerships are built with trusted community groups, and the actual communication plan is written out, tested, and fine-tuned. They even draft core messages for different scenarios and figure out exactly how they're going to get information out there, whether it's through social media, press conferences, or even local community leaders. And then the alarm goes off. The crisis begins. And that brings us to phase 2, the first response. This is probably the most critical period of all, because public trust is either won or lost in these first few hours. Now, the order here is so deliberate and really fascinating. Notice what's number 1. The first priority isn't to just dump a bunch of facts on people. It's to express empathy. Only after that connection is made do you clearly explain the risks, promote simple, actionable things people can do, and then describe what the authorities are doing to handle it. That first step is the key that unlocks all the others. Let's just sit with that first point for a second, because it's so human, and you could argue it's the most important one. So why lead with empathy? Well, think about it. When people are scared, they just can't process complex information. By acknowledging their fear and uncertainty first, you open the door for them to actually hear the facts and guidance that come next. It builds that human connection you need for any of the other steps to land. So once that initial shock starts to wear off, the battle shifts. It's less about managing the unknown and more about managing information itself. Welcome to phase 3, managing the infodemic. And that's an overwhelming flood of both good and bad information that can be just as dangerous as the crisis itself. This really captures the daily tug-of-war perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you have health authorities trying to push out clear, science-based guidance. And on the other, you have this tidal wave of rumors and straight-up disinformation that spreads like wildfire online, creating confusion and chipping away at public trust. So how in the world do you fight an infodemic? It's not about just shouting louder. The key weapon is actually way more strategic. It's something called social listening. This means teams are actively monitoring social media, online forums, and community chatter to understand what people are actually worried about and what rumors are taking hold in real time. Then they can jump in and address those specific concerns directly before they spiral out of control.
Okay, so we've talked about all these systems and plans and phases. It's a huge, complex machine. But what is it all for? When you strip everything else away, what is the single most important goal of all this work?
The answer is so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. It is to strengthen and maintain community trust. Trust is the absolute currency of a crisis. Without it, the best plans in the world will just fall apart. Messages won't be heard and people won't cooperate. Every single action in this entire playbook is ultimately about building and protecting that trust. And that brings us to the final chapter, which kicks in right as the crisis starts to fade. Phase 4, recovery and rebuilding. Because the job isn't over just because the immediate danger has passed. In fact, some of the most important work is just beginning. The work doesn't just stop when the story fades from the news. This whole phase is about learning. Officials do these incredibly detailed reviews, asking the tough questions. Which messages actually worked? Where did we fail to connect with people? How could we have been faster or clearer? The answers to these questions are then fed right back into the playbook to make it stronger for the next time. And that really brings us to our final thought for today. We have all just lived through a massive global health crisis. We saw this playbook in action, we saw where it worked, and we saw where it stumbled. The lessons are right there in front of us. But the real question is, are we actually ready to apply them when the next one inevitably arrives?